All right, so today I have on Steph McGady, and she is a mental health educator. Today we're gonna cover a little bit about grief, her experience with grief, and yeah, Steph is in my grief support group. But hey, Steph, how are you doing?
Good. How are you doing? I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you on today. Glad you could make it. Yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do for work? Because I know mental health, especially now, is like so important. And I feel so many people are finally, becoming aware of uh, their mental health and that they need to work on it. So yeah, let us know what do you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So right now, I actually teach mostly to parents, but we talk about things like empathy, we talk about trauma, we talk about healthy communication, and really kind of just enhancing their relationships in their life and specifically with their children. Yeah.
Okay, so is it kind of like so then you work for an organization and then these parents kind of like sign up for the classes and stuff?
Right. Yep. Exactly. And we can like teach anybody in the community. They're free. So it's a really great opportunity. And sometimes like in the beginning, they're like, I don't need this. It's all good. And then by the end, they're like, oh my God, like I actually got something out of this. Like, and they actually form a community, which is super cool to see.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
because I know I remember they were always like those essays when we were when we were kids and you had to do an argumentative essay or whatever persuasive about like if parents should have to take a class or whatever to become a parent. Do you remember those like types of
Yeah.
topics?
Yeah,
I don't know
definitely.
why that just made me think of that, um
Yeah.
but yeah, this is like that sounds awesome because I feel like I mean whereas we like learn so much our like age range, we have more tools and like if we choose to have kids, like we'll be able to incorporate those into it. But as far as some of the people that are parenting now that are older, like they don't know all the tools that or they're
Yeah.
learning. So I love what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Or maybe they're just kind of enhancing what they already know. And also they bring in so much wisdom, like all my parents. I mean, I teach like a really, really vast age range. I teach teen parents. I also teach like 70-year-olds, like grandmoms, just people who maybe have not had to grapple with things like that. Like, especially when we talk about safety and sexual development, the LGBTQ community is constantly growing and there's always something new to learn. So maybe they're just enhancing what they already know and kind of opening up those conversations, or some of them might be uncomfortable for some families or some cultures. They don't usually talk about things like mental health or trauma, or, I even have people who come into class and they're like, I don't think I have any trauma. And then we kind of like unpack it and we're able to sit there and be like, huh, maybe that was a little traumatic for me. So it is really, really interesting to see and very, very hopeful,
Hmm.
definitely. So, yeah.
So do you
And there's
think,
no rule book for parenting. So like I think that it's super important for them to have like a community or something that they can even bounce their own ideas off of.
that is really great. So do you think then like when you mentioned trauma, do you feel like do you believe in the like big T little T trauma or
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. There's big T events in our lives and then there's little T events. And also two people can go through the same exact trauma and have completely different reactions and really just different lived experiences. So some things that I might go through or you might go through might be different because of what we both experienced.
hmm right. And what would losing a parent, is that considered big or little T?
I would say it's a pretty big T. I think it's like a big, big T. You know, it also depends on who you ask. Maybe they weren't as close with a parent, or maybe a parent did something, that didn't really agree with them. So, I mean, for some people, it might be not as big of a T as it is for, other people. So I think that's important to note too.
Yeah, I like how you mentioned that because everybody's relationship is different and unique with their parent. And I think like with my mom, I feel like as many moms and teenage daughters don't, they butt heads, and I feel like that's how it was
Mhm.
for me. And I feel like when, I left for college, we became close and we had this friendship, and then I lost her. So it was like, so I feel like I totally get with like what you're saying about the relationship and
Yeah,
everything.
absolutely. And I think that's why I feel so passionately about what I do, is because like I lost my both my parents and I know like I wish that I can meet my parents as I am right now. Like with what
Mm,
I know, with the education that I received, like with the people that I was able to talk to and just kind of that better understanding. But I don't think that I would be where I am today without losing both of them.
mm-hmm,
So it's so interesting to think about. But I really just, I'm so passionate about it because I just want to enhance the relationships that people have with their parents while they still have them,
mm-hmm,
and just kind of the importance of that. And yeah, I definitely had a rocky relationship with my mom up until she passed. So, so things like that. It's hard. It's hard to cope with. And that's, different. So I think that it's just super important to enhance those relationships, any relationship in our life while we still can.
mm-hmm. So how old were you when you lost your first parent that you lost?
So I was a sophomore in college. I was 20 years old when I first lost my dad.
Hmm. Okay. And if you're okay with going into that, did you like, was he sick or was it kind of like unexpected?
So it was pretty unexpected for me. My dad committed suicide in 2018. So it was kind of like a really big shock for me, just because I was very close with my dad. And I was in college, so like I wasn't seeing him as often, and I wasn't like, um, as I wasn't with him all the time, so I guess I didn't see it, and he kind of distanced himself a bit. So yeah, both my parents passed away kind of like unexpectedly, like here one day, gone the next kind of
Mm.
thing. So
And when, after you lost him, did you feel like you began to grieve, or did you feel like, how did that kind of look for you after, like, the moments, after?
right. So for me, I was in shock, like just in shock, and like I wasn't understanding like the permanence, and like I would go places and I would expect to see my dad. Like I would walk in my old house and I'd be like where he used to sit and stuff. Like I would look over there and I'd be like, oh my God, he's not there. Like that's so creepy. So I think that it really took me a while for me to kind of realize that like, oh, he's not coming back. Like I'm not gonna see him again. Also, because you're away at school, so you don't see your parents as often. So it's like, okay, like this is kind of normal. And then like once it gets to like a year or even 2 years, it's like, whoa, like this is permanent. This is not, he's not coming back. So I definitely think it was shock. And I was, very like, I just felt really bad that I didn't see signs or like I wasn't able to help him because I was in nursing school for 2 years before my dad passed away. And then when my dad passed away, I was like, oh my God, I need to go into mental health. Like I just like felt this like insane amount of drive to do mental health and help other people and advocate for people who weren't able to, have these supports and have outs or have, other coping mechanisms that I don't think my dad had the opportunity to have. So I think it really did, in a way, shock me, but also kind of drive me. And I put that a lot in the front seat of my life. And I kind of just focused on really saying, how can I help the community? And kind of just focused on that the most, really. So shock and just like kind of distracting myself with other things and trying to just survive and get through school.
I think that's one of the things that like was hardest definitely for like dealing with the loss. It's like you're saying, just like the permanence of it. And which sounds like stupid because you're like, oh, if somebody dies, like obviously they're gone. But like it's just like they were just here. Like, what do you mean they're gone? I was just on the phone with them. Or like, I
Mm-hmm.
just saw them 2 days ago or 3 hours ago. Like, what do you
Mm-hmm.
mean? And it's just like poof, like they're just gone. And it's like the wildest thing in a way.
Yeah. It really totally is. But in the same token, like I knew right away. Like so my dad was missing for a while. And as soon as I got that first call, like nothing like suspicious or anything. And I just like had this like horrible feeling. Like I was out with one of my friends and I told my friend, I was like, my dad's not okay. Like I didn't know like to the extent, but I just like had this weird feeling. And even right before my mom had passed, I had the same exact feeling. It was like really it was really, really scary. So
Mhm.
just like, like I knew in my body almost, but I didn't know like in my mind kind of thing. And like really just kind of holding on to that permanence, I would say.
Mhm. So you're saying that you got a call that he was missing and then you had a weird feeling after, or you
Yeah.
had the weird
Like
feeling first?
like I had a weird feeling like right after that initial call, like even though
Gotcha.
like, nobody was like, oh, he's missing, like they were just like, oh, have you talked to your dad today? And I was just like something felt,
Hmm.
off. So
That you bring up an interesting point though reminds me because I definitely had like a weird feeling, but I didn't realize like it was like the feeling of her passing or her like soul, I guess, leaving her body or what. But I was like having a horrible day at school, and I
mhm,
was, I was teaching fourth grade at the time, and I was like looking at the kids and like trying to teach because that's basically what I did all the time was try, but like some of the
right.
behaviors were just really disruptive. So I was like looking around because all of a sudden they all got really quiet and like there was just like this crazy sense of like peace and
Hmm.
like I just felt like I don't know, I felt like almost like my heart was like shining or like it just felt like gold, like the light and the sun shone brighter and it just like
Hmm.
felt everything felt like golden almost. It was crazy and I was like, wow, like everybody's so quiet. Like and then I
Yeah.
kind of asked my dad like um more recently. I was like, "Oh, like did mom pass at like 1:30 or whatever?" And he was like, "I think so." I was like, "Oh, wow, okay." Because that's what time it was. I remember. So, yeah.
Wow, that's really crazy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think it's kind of interesting though. I feel like we can be intuitive with like, well, I definitely believe in
Yeah,
intuition, but just very
absolutely.
intuitive with it because like I think before my grandfather passed, I was like, "Oh, I should like go see him." And then he passed or
Hmm.
whatever. And then like I remember seeing my grandmother before she passed and just thinking like she doesn't look good. But I didn't
Yeah,
really like think like anything of it. But
right. No, definitely. I definitely feel that. I think like maybe even just like their energies or something, like something was like just off and I knew it immediately. And my friend like who was with me, like love her. And we've talked about this a lot, but like she was like, what are you talking about? Like your dad's fine. Like you literally just asked like if he was coming home from work. And I was like, no, like I need to go to my house right now. And I had my friend drive me at the time because I just like I knew it was so weird. And yeah, so it's really, really weird. I just think that we are energetically like definitely connected to our parents. Even if our relationship is good or bad, I think that I think that we still do really have like an energy tie to them or like an intuitive nature of that relationship for sure.
hmm. And then how long until like you had lost your mom?
So I lost my mom in November of 2020, so 2 years later. I was like about to graduate college. And my mom passed away from COVID. So that was really rough because I was living alone at the time. And then I actually had COVID from my mom, so then no one could come see me. So then I was like literally isolated for two weeks by myself after my mom died. I was just like, I'm gonna lose it. But yeah. So that I think that after after my mom passed, I was like really able to be like, whoa. Like I think that I was able to like slow down enough because we had that time during the pandemic to kind of like have, more time to think and everything. And I think that's when I was really able to just kind of reflect on everything that had happened. Like before when my dad had passed away, I was really busy with school and everything, but now school was online and work was online. So things like that, I think it just really helped me slow down.
Hmm.
So,
So after your mom passed, then like you were saying, you had 2 weeks of like isolation after. But how
mhm.
did your grieving kind of go after that?
I think it it was definitely hard, especially because like I couldn't see people, and I think that before my coping was distracting myself. So like I could call people or FaceTime them, but it's just not the same as like physically being with people. And it was just kind of like, whoa, what am I gonna do now? Like like I don't like I think that even though me and my mom had a harder relationship, it's still like that like person who will provide you like that unconditional love and support. So losing that other person, it was just kind of like it really definitely shaped my world for sure.
You just hit on something that I've said so many times. It's that person that loves you unconditionally. Like, okay, granted,
Mhm.
not everybody's relationship with their mom's like that. Not everybody has a mom. I get that. But like
Right.
if you have a mom, like that is like the one thing because you're just like, oh, like I could do anything wrong, within the
Hmm.
scope, of course, but like they'll still
Yeah.
love me. And then like I could like F up here and this and that and like they'll still love me. And it's like, oh, like wow, I'm feeling like unsafe, like walking home, like, oh, all my friends are da da da, like let me call my mom, or like
Yeah.
it's that one person, like you're like, okay, I'm always protected because I have her there, or like her
Mhm.
within reach or within a phone call away. So that's
Right.
that's the one thing I think like losing the mom is like, or the whoever really really raised you is like the big. I feel like it can be
Really
extremely
difficult.
hard. Yeah.
And again, like I think that permanency thing just came up. Like I just remember being in the middle of the pandemic and like just doing like silly things, like going to Taco Bell or something in the middle of the night. I always tell this story because like I don't know why, but that was like the time where I was like, oh my God, no one has my location right now. And then I of course promptly shared it with all my friends. But like, like just like a safety thing, even like I don't have those people that are like just kind of looking at me, even though I was in college and not necessarily they were doing that, but it's just like it was just like a whoa, like you're really like it's just it's me and me right now, and we have to figure out how to kind of construct my life. Like I really think that I had to rebuild and like figure things out all over again and in a different way, like when we go off to college, we get all these different independence and everything, and but like it's not the same. Like it's just like, and I felt like I couldn't take certain risks that my friends might have been making, like, you know, moving, doing big moves, or like just doing things that I felt like had some risk because it was just me and I had to kind of rely on that, So I was kind of like playing it safer with some things. And I think it really did change like the way that I lived my life for sure.
Hmm. So, what do you feel like then is some of maybe the misconceptions about grief that like you realize, or like what you wish more people knew about it?
For me, I mean, like everybody's situation is different. Like that's what I've learned like through and through. Like when I first started like going to grief groups and everything, I like was the youngest one by far. And especially like for dual parent loss, like there's very few of us, which can be hard. But even though you feel like very alone, you're not really alone, I think that was something that I learned. And that was like, that really did help me. Like, once I was able to like really kind of feel that. And there are communities and there are people out there, as well as like, so like when I did first go into these grief groups, like there was people that were like 10 years, 20 years out, and they were like still kind of recounting it like it was yesterday. And that really scared me because I was like, whoa, like this is like for the rest of my life, like at every single event. And like, there are bad days and there are like easier days and everything like that. But at the end of the day, like we find a way to like find peace in what we can, and we will get through it. Like I think even in my hardest moments, like, and I've been so stressed about things, but they happened and they're done. And like we move on, and we kind of are able to find new things in our lives. So it's like, yes, like I'm always going to be affected, and who knows when I'm going to be affected by grief, but also it doesn't dictate my life. Um, so I definitely think that that's something that I thought in the beginning. Like I really felt like it was going to kind of, not saying it doesn't every day, some days I have bad days, but for the most part, I think that in a way, it's kind of like helped me in a weird, weird way. Like, not that I don't miss my parents or I'm not like happy that they like, not by any means, but I think that it definitely brought me, I wouldn't be where I am right now if everything didn't happen. So sometimes when bad things happen to us, I think that there are things that we can get out of them, or kind of just help us in our journey and in our lives. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think what you said is like important is like, you know, 10 years can pass and it's still like it was yesterday. And I think that's one thing like that I learned it's like, oh, it's always going to be with us. Like it's always going to be a part, but like you said, it doesn't have to dictate our lives. And like that's where I kind of am kind of, I don't know, like maybe showing people that it doesn't have to be all sad and like we don't have to like
Yeah,
talk about
definitely.
it all like in a sad tone and it's like it's gonna be a part of like me, but it's everybody's gonna grieve at some point like too.
Right.
So it's like so it
Yeah.
doesn't have to have that like crying in the corner like type of look. Like I can, you know, smile, but like, you know, later on I might be sad one day or like I might not be sad at all one day. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's like day to day.
exactly. And I also think like something that I love that you mentioned, like grief and grieving doesn't have to be sad. Um, it looks different for absolutely everybody, and maybe something that was sad previously now like you feel differently about, and you kind of are like more like reflecting on that good time, or like I mean, what I noticed too is like I'm having like a lot more like happy memories about my parents. I don't know if this you resonate with that, but I definitely think that I've been thinking more about like just kind of like if I go somewhere, like I'm like, oh yeah, I went there with my dad, or I went there with my mom, and like we did this or something. So I think you can grieve and you can honor them, but it doesn't have to be sad. It definitely does not have to be sad. But it can be too, you know, and like I think it looks different every day, and I think it looks different every season of my life. Um, but yeah,
And it looks different for everybody too, which is like,
yeah,
'cause it's like I just want a magic like, just give me a book, give me a spiel about like what it's gonna be like, what I should expect, like.
yeah,
But oh, it's like one of those like vague,
yeah,
vague directions or something. Like do this, and you're like, what? Where?
yeah,
Where do I put the thing?
yeah, absolutely.
How do you feel like it changed
That's
your?
what I first
Oh,
noticed.
go on. Sorry.
No, you go ahead.
I was
No,
gonna
I
say,
was just
how do
gonna
you?
say that's what I like first noticed about grief. Like, you know, everybody wants like whenever somebody passes, everybody comes to me. They're like, "What do I do?" And I'm like, "Grieve," you know, and it looks like different for everybody. So definitely.
hmm What do you? How do you feel like it changed the way you live your life or the way you view life?
I definitely think it made me more aware of like, which is good and bad in different moments, I think, like just kind of aware that we can lose people, and not everything is certain, and just kind of really doing what I want to do and what I'm passionate about. And I think before I wasn't really able to maybe explore that as much. Um, I definitely think it's kind of driven me to do what I'm doing and continue on to what I even want to do in the future. It definitely changed my career path. But I just think it really helped me tune into who I am and what that looks like and what I want to accomplish while I'm, you know, able to even, because anything can happen to anybody, and just really cherishing the relationships that I have. I think that friendships are like everything to me because they are my family. Like these are the people that were there for me. I think that you really do learn who's there for you and who's not there for you, especially when something big like this happens. Um, and, and yeah, I just think to really cherish like every moment and try to be more present as much as possible. That's definitely what I've been trying to adopt in my life.
hmm Yeah, basically second all of that. For sure. Yeah, and just like valuing for me too, like valuing my health and like my happiness and putting them like first, really,
Mhm.
too. And just knowing like, okay, my health is so important. Like I think that's how like stress I think literally caused my mom's health problems. So I'm like,
Mhm.
we're gonna dedicate some time to like doing these like
Yep.
breathing exercises, going for a walk, meditating if that's what I choose, whatever. Like, so
Mhm.
I definitely hear you on that, all that.
Yeah, I definitely think it taught me also just to be creative, try different things, like don't be afraid to try like the new like try meditating, try yoga, try everything, try anything and everything you possibly can, and see what works for you, see what feels good for you, and find community wherever you can. talk to
Mhm.
people. That was really what got me through my grief personally, was talking to people. I feel like I talked about the same exact stories over and over and over and over. And I think that it was less about what people told me about it and more me hearing myself talk about it. And just kind of reflecting on how it affected me and what that was like for me. And I think that's really what got me through, is like the community that I have built around me, as well as just really, kind of, sorry, just kind of thinking about how it affects me and how I'm going to move forward and kind of planning that way. So, yeah.
Yeah, community is literally so important because we aren't meant to be alone in anything. And, you know, making sure that these relationships too are like quality ones, which
Mhm.
from what you're saying, sounds like all like your friends are. But just in general for like the listeners, like it's so important to have make sure people are quality and like and how do you feel like when you're hanging out with them or how do you feel when you leave hanging out with them?
Yeah.
So, what do you feel like has helped you maybe like choose good connections and stuff? Or like, how do you maybe meet new people?
Well, recently I've just been joining different groups, kind of like the one that you're hosting, as well as just like anything that I find on Instagram. Like I just have been just trying to put myself out there more, also because like that embarrassment that we feel or anything is just kind of fake. Like it's just what we tell ourselves. So once you kind of like that rejection aspect of it, um it's a very real emotion, but like in real, it doesn't really have any like real pull on ourselves. We just kind of are like societally done that. So I just put myself in different situations now where I'm able to meet new people, which can be hard sometimes. Like sometimes
Mhm.
you don't feel like it and don't push yourself, but like when you can, and when you have like the social energy to just talk to people, engage in even online, that can be like an easy starter way, I think. Or if you see somebody on Instagram that you think that you could connect with or be friends with, like reach out to them or like comment on, whatever or something. You never know what you have in common with somebody, and there's so many different types of people out there. I'm sure like you have common threads somewhere. Like I was literally in line to get my COVID vaccine, and I met somebody in front of me who also lost her mom from COVID. And we were like getting the vaccine like the same exact day, and she was right in front of me. We went out and got tacos afterwards, like because like that was such a big deal, and to like literally have somebody in front of me in line that like had the same exact situation from me, like, so yeah, just talk to anybody and everybody around you. And ask other people, say like, like, is there any grief groups that I can get involved in? Is there any other like whatever you're interested in that time, or whatever you feel like you need? Just reach out to other people, talk to them.
Mhm. I know, I think it's one thing that like I've gotten so much better at too is like yeah,
Yeah.
meeting new people and like getting out there to like do different groups because I think like you said it like losing somebody really teaches us like oh like who like the quality and like
Hmm.
oh life's short so like let me have surround myself with like people that fill my cup and fill
Right.
my heart with happiness or whatever and like let's try new things and like go yeah so I'm definitely like doing that next week when I go on my little trip so I'm like oh cool
Absolutely.
like a place where I'm going like solo travel fine like
Yeah.
let's do it
Yeah.
so it's so funny
Yeah.
yeah yeah like sorry also the wind is like crazy today it's like
Yeah. I heard some ambulance going by. I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry.
yeah, no, we didn't pick that up. But is there anything else that, any other advice you think for like somebody grieving or anything you want to add in general?
I feel like there's no right or wrong way to grieve. Like I know like it sounds like so like kind of cliche and like you want an answer, but there really is no answer. I feel like it takes time and guess and test. Like see what feels good for you. Like build the relationships in the community that you want to see. Really even like just filling your Instagram with positive people, or finding people that you really relate to or feel good about, and finding things that make you happy. And just because, something hard happened to you, that doesn't define you. For a really long time, I think I was so like, I felt like the girl who lost both her parents. I was like kind of felt like everybody, that was like what was plastered on my forehead. Um, but now as more time has gone on, like it doesn't last forever. And, at the end of the day, we're our biggest supporters. So just try and find like peace and happiness wherever you can.
I love that. And I guess a question just came to mind. Do you believe or subscribe, whatever you want to say, to the thought that there's like stages of grief? Or what are your thoughts on that?
So I definitely think there are, but I don't think it's like step one, step two. Like I just think sometimes like you could be in one moment, you could be, in anger and kind of just I think it depends on the person and where they're at in their different stages. Because and there's no timeline on it for sure. Like I think sometimes, people just based off of their own life experiences, maybe they're at different places or they're different cultures, maybe they had to do different things that I didn't even have to do. So I just think that it definitely depends on that person's journey. And they could be anywhere at any time or any stage throughout their life, really. And like just because right now, like I, today, like tomorrow, it could be like, different story or anniversaries or bigger accomplishments, things like that can really kind of change how we react or feel to different things. So that was the long answer. The short answer is yeah, I believe in different stages, but I think it just depends on the person, really, how we go through those stages.
Hmm. Yeah, I definitely think that there are different stages, like you're saying, that we can experience, but I don't think necessarily like we hit all of them. And
Right.
like you said, in a specific order too. Like I don't think I've ever
Yeah.
felt like I forget which one, but I was like, I definitely didn't feel that right after the loss. Like I never felt that one, like or whatever. So yeah, like so I think that's one thing that I don't know. I hear people throw around all the time, stages, stages, and like I just don't resonate with it personally. But everybody's different.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. And whatever resonates for you, take it.
Hmm.
Take it because
Right.
that'll make you feel connected. And so just because it doesn't work for me, like the exact steps, maybe it resonates with you and that's what makes you feel, kind of good in your grief, then absolutely. So
Hmm.
um yeah,
Awesome. All right. Well, any other last thought that you want to add?
that is it for right now, I think. Thank you so much.
Okay. Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. And I am so glad that, I'm grateful that you're open to sharing your story and your thoughts. And like, it feels good for me to know, like, oh, wow, like there are a lot of other people that are, in my boat. And it's interesting that like once we start talking about things like in our life, whatever it could be like, we'll start attracting like, people into our area. I totally believe. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, so thanks so much for coming on, and
Thank you.
you're welcome, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right.
Bye.
Thanks.